Real undercover work is a far cry from the sexy, candy-colored world you've seen in the movies. You're cutting in my drinking time.
Work entails tiptoeing on the edge of a cliff in a storm every minute of every day.
Dude, you've been there.
Hey, what was it like to work with Vincent Cefalu on Undercover Op?
I was a full-on train wreck. Coolest job in the world to be an ATF undercover agent.
Hey, it's Lou Pimber here. Welcome to Lou Pimber Speaks. Today, I have the pleasure of having a very, very special guest. Look, some of you might know him, and if you do know him, you might want to check yourself because, look, he's a rat snake amongst rat snakes, and we'll get into that in a second. But my very special guest is a gentleman named Vincent Cefalu. And let me go ahead and get to a brief introduction of this young man here. It's Vincent A. Cefalu, right? He spent 30 years as an ATF undercover operative in assignments ranging from the Symbionese Liberation Army to Asian organized crime. He has infiltrated notorious outlaw motorcycle gangs as well as splinter groups of the Ku Klux Klan. And in RatSnakes, he provides an up-close look at the organization and the operatives with whom he risked his life with. Incredible, incredible. Here is the book, by the way, RatSnakes. If you haven't got it, you need to get this book. As you can tell, I've got some notes. I read the thing. I actually read it. I read it twice. I was so taken back by the stories. Vince, welcome, and welcome, Vince. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. That was a very kind introduction.
Now you earned that, man. You deserve that, brother. Let me ask you something, Vince. Who is Vince Cefalu? Who's the real Vince Cefalu?
Oh, dude, you're going all esoteric on me. Dude, I'm just like every other cop out there, got the bug, decided they might could do some good, wanted to help. And I migrated toward, I was kind of a street guy when I came on in the cops in the beginning.
Yeah.
So I was kind of a natural fit for that sort of street level enforcement activity. But I'm just like everybody, dude. I just wanted to do good. I wanted to be, save people and save the world and, do the best I could, just like everybody else in my book, man.
And I heard a rumor that you said that Stevie Nicks was completely wrong, because Stevie Nicks says the best job in the world is be a rock and roll singer, but you say she's wrong, right? How's that?
Yeah, dude. She might have the second best job in the world, but I used to think when I was in the military and when I was a kid growing up, you know what? Coolest job in the world would be a fighter pilot or a rock star or something. I was wrong. Coolest job in the world would be an ATF undercover agent. That's as good as it gets. I would have done that for free if I didn't have so many bills.
I love it, man. I love it. Look, I want to read something from your book, okay? And it says, UC work, undercover work, is scary every time. Every time. You might be wondering why anybody would want to be a UC. Few normal jobs result in your death if you're not good at them. And UC work entails tiptoeing on the edge of a cliff in a storm every minute of every day. Frankly, not everybody has a skill set, the personality, or the balls to be a UC agent. Man, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
Dude, you've been there.
Hey, man, it's quite the thrill, man. It's quite the thrill. So let me take you back a little bit. So Vince, you were originally from Northern California, or you from out East Coast somewhere? Where were you from originally?
Marin County, just outside San Francisco.
Got it. So you were kind of a knucklehead as a kid, to my surprise.
Oh, dude, no, my kids were knuckleheads. I was a full-on train wreck. Fortunately for me, a lot of people saw something in me and they didn't give up on me like they had to on so many other thugs.
Yeah.
But, you know, they stayed with me, kept their foot in my ass. And, you know, finally something got my attention. Well, it was the Marine Corps, but.
So you ended up in the Marines, and how many years did you do in the Marines?
I did 6 years in the Marine Corps.
Right on.
6 years active duty. I was trying to finish my college and I didn't. So it was either re-enlist or get out. And I figured I better check it out on the outside before I commit to another 14 years in the Marines.
And then you got picked up by a police department, right?
Yeah, it was a great story. I was teaching special weapons and tactics at Camp Lejeune as part of the original FAST teams. And we would train state and local departments. And my ex-wife, my first wife, my childhood sweetheart, whatever, was from Georgia. So I just wanted to finish my college. I had my eyes set on the feds early on.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd met these guys from the Athens SWAT team that came up and trained with us. And they said, hey, you're getting out pretty soon, dude. We're hiring. And, you know, it was close to where my wife was from. Her parents were there. And I was like, this win-win, no brainer. University of Georgia's right there and everything.
Yeah.
So I got picked up. Yeah, I was out 60 days before I got hired with the police department. And that just, you know, kept me going in the right direction.
Look, what was your biggest takeaway as Vincent Cefalu, the all-out train wreck? What did you learn from that?
Dude, more than I could put in a book. I don't even know that I could quantify. I brought like a level of common sense and street smarts that a lot of 17-year-olds may never achieve, much less in 17 years.
Yeah.
But because of my foolishness, and there's nothing good about it. I'm not trying to put a good spin on the bad stuff I was doing as a kid. I'm just saying in the process, I learned the ways of the street so that when I put a badge on, when I straightened my life up, there was no bullshit in me. I knew every game and every play to be made on the street because I was there, you know?
And from the Marine Corps, what did you take away from that? What was your biggest takeaway from the Marine Corps?
The Marine Corps caused me to grow up. The Marine Corps was not my first choice. The Air Force was my first choice for obvious reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And they told me, nah. They looked at my record and they were like, nah, ain't happening. They were trying to downsize. Vietnam was shutting down. And so they were trying to downsize the military.
Right.
And so I went out of there dejected, walking down the hall, and the Marine Corps recruiter was over there going, psst, hey, kid, psst, over here. And I had already been put on notice by a judge. It was a sort of a bogus, reckless drive. I dumped a stolen car in the lake.
Okay. It happens.
He gave me an ultimatum, like a year in jail or 4 years in the military, my choice.
So that cadence is real. Go to war, go to jail.
Well, yeah, pretty much.
They wrote it because of a guy like you.
Yeah, well, and they should have. And, you know, looking back, a year in jail would have been a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
But I made the right decision, and the Marine Corps caused me to grow up, learn how to be a man, learn about honor and integrity and dignity and self-respect.
Yeah.
And, you know, comportment and, you know, how to carry yourself. And that catapulted me through the rest of it. The rest of it was a breeze after the Marines. The standards they held me to, it became simple. So anything on the outside was baby shit compared to the Marines.
So what you were lacking was some standards in your life and someone to really enforce them, to hold you accountable, accountability.
Yeah, my parents were great parents, but they were divorced. I lived with my single mom, you know, raising me. She had to work.
Yeah.
You got a 16-year-old boy at home. Well, it started when I was 13 being a fool. But you got this 13-year-old boy at home. You're working 3 to 11 in San Francisco. That means I got the run of the streets from 3 till midnight.
What years were those? What years were those? What?
1971 through 77.
Wow. Okay. So those were good times then. Memorable for you.
It was a lot of fun.
So what did you do in the Marine Corps? What was your MOS in the Marines?
I was a military policeman.
Okay. So that's kind of a stretch, right? I mean, you went from go to war, go to jail, or and you became a Marine.
It is at face value, but I got to tell you.
Tell me.
Obviously, I had a few more interactions with law enforcement than most kids.
Yep.
But I got to tell you, I came away from that always looking up to those dudes, those detectives that would come by my house and interview me or my mom or whatever, and whatever, for some stolen stuff or something I supposedly did or I did do.
The statute of limitations is
professional, and they were so freaking giant.
Yeah.
And larger in charge. That even back in those days when I was going to juvenile hall and Hannah Boys Center and all that, I was like, I would really one day like to be a cop, because they were bigger than life to me. They were something to be, respected.
I love it, man. I love it. And so from there, you eventually transitioned into the ATF.
Yeah, well, I took a stop with U.S. Customs Service for 2 years.
Okay.
Like I said, when I was at Camp Lejeune, we went to a police Olympics, and a bunch of the feds were there. ATF was there, FBI was there, DEA was there, as well as 100 different police departments. There's police Olympics in Carolina.
Yeah.
And so I got a chance to bend some of these feds' ears, Secret Service guys. They gave me time. Not a lot, but we'd shoot shit.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, and here I am, I'm like 20 years old. And I'm like,
yeah,
I want to be a fed. I want to be one of you guys. What does it take? And to a man, every one of them asked me, do you have a college degree? I said, no, sir. Said, well, come talk to us when you do. Yeah. So that became my next stepping stone. I had to finish that college degree.
Right on. Right on.
And then even when I did, and I was pretty up to speed, I applied to everybody. And then all the offers started coming in about the same time. Customs was the first ones. And I knew enough, having talked to everybody I could talk to, don't turn down one. Take one, get your foot in the door. If you want to jump from Customs to DEA, it's doable. If you want to go from DEA to Secret Service, it's doable. Just get your foot in the door.
Yeah.
And I really didn't know that much about Customs. I knew a little bit, and I researched it. And I went, that sounds like a pretty good gig.
Okay.
And it was. It was a great agency, great. It was during the cocaine wars. I was in Key West, Florida. I mean, come on.
Not a bad deal.
No. But after about 2 years, I had a big undercover case of a seagoing tugboat taking guns out of the country.
Okay.
My boss in Key West was a former ATF agent. He came over to Customs. He looked at the case, he looked at the armament, the firepower, and he goes, dude, we got to bring ATF in on this. At that point, I literally only knew what I learned in the academy. We had 2 or 3 ATF agents in my investigator school. I knew that much. I mean, it's not like I knew anything about them. But I said, all right, who I call? And he told me, and I called him. And we had like 25 agents on this case, because it's the biggest case in South Florida at the time, involved with these weapons. And ATF sent 1 agent down. And the dude took over, took the lead, ran the operation, came in, made like it was nothing. Couple days, bing, bang, boom, we took it off. Boom, he left town. And I was like, who was that guy?
All right.
I was like, we got like half of South Florida assigned to this thing. They sent 1 agent. So I got a kind of a good feeling about those guys.
Yeah.
About 6 months later, I was on a long-term detail to the Bahamas with 2 other customs agents. We were working with the Bahamian Defense Force, tracking smugglers and stuff. And both of them, this was their last gig with customs. They were both going to ATF.
Okay.
So I was like, tell me more, because I was kind of getting sick of the smuggling thing.
Yeah.
I didn't see a lot of future with customs for me, because I knew at some point they were going to put me in child pornography group. I mean, that's just their jurisdiction.
Yeah.
And I knew I did not have the temperament for that.
Yeah.
That I just probably would not do well.
Yeah.
Around child pornography.
Yeah.
And so I started making some calls and shit. 60 days later, I was hired.
Right on, man.
And
right
all
on.
three of us ended up, one of the guys on the boat and me ended up in San Francisco together. That was our first office. The other guy is Jim Langley, who's in my book.
Okay. Yeah. So I take it from your book. You made quite a first impression at the ATF Academy. You made quite a first impression with a gentleman named Patrick Kelly.
Pat Kelly and Charlie Fuller. Yeah, they took a liking to me.
Yeah.
Which is really, because I can be a hard guy to like just because I bring all kind of shit with me anywhere I go. It's just always been that way.
Yeah.
I apologize, but I am who I am. And so I was pretty loud and proud in that academy. I had a whole lot of experience under my belt by then.
Yeah.
A bunch of these guys were fresh out of college, or they might have worked as a cop for a little while, but I was kind of, I was top of the food chain. It was a lot of fun.
And so from reading the book, I remember you said one of the most common questions that were asked by new agents. And the question is, what do you do if someone points or makes you do something you don't want to do, something that's wrong? And I love Patrick Kelly's answer, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, that was just one example,
Let me read from the book. He says, look,
you're not going to read that. You're not going to read that.
Not all of it. Look, your only job is to go home at the end of every day, right? If a violator puts a gun to your face and he says blank, I suggest you learn how to blank real fast. And that's in page 39. If you have the book, I suggest you get to that page.
That's a quote. That is a direct Pat Kelly quote.
And look, I think it goes in the nature of just the ATF and the nature of the ruggedness of the work of an undercover cop, man. That's how in your face, how ugly it can be sometimes, how just dangerous it can be. And that's kind of where you earn that t-shirt of yours, right? Let me see that t-shirt again. Let me see that. The one you got on right now.
You want now? Oh, the shirt?
Yeah, that's where you earn the shirt. Let me see the shirt. Let's see it. Yeah. Let's see it. Stand up a little bit. Let's check out the shirt. Undercover cop. I love it, man. Right on. Tell me a little bit, for those people who don't understand the whole concept of a rat snake, right? And where the name rat snake kind of comes from. Tell me about the rat snake analogy, and of course, the whole school of becoming an undercover operator.
Well, it's sort of hard to understand from the outside, but if you picture a government agency, a bureaucracy in law enforcement, the general picture people are going to see is some guy wearing wingtip shoes and suits, which we did and we do. But in order to accomplish ATF's mission, we relied heavily on undercover operators, guys who spent more time doing undercover than traditional investigations or arsons or explosive cases. And it took away from the clean-cut persona of a local field office or the field division. So we weren't the most loved. We weren't hated. We were just more of a necessary evil, because with us, with the operators, the RatSnakes, we brought potential danger. Every time a boss signed off on an undercover operation, he knew this could go terribly wrong, and there's going to be a lot of questions asked and a lot of answers have to be given, and drama. Bosses don't like drama. They like nice, clean cut search warrants and, wiretaps or, document cases. But when you start getting out there man to man, face to face, it gets tricky. So because of that, we were a necessary evil, but we weren't always the golden children. We weren't the people that the bosses marched out when the bosses from headquarters came down to visit. We weren't the ones they always introduced at cocktail hour, or it was almost like they appreciate us, but they weren't proud of us.
Got it.
We just didn't give that persona that they wanted the Bureau to look like. So they tolerated us.
They kind of kept you in a jar.
Yeah, that just came. I don't even know where it came from. I don't even know who coined it. I think maybe Chris Bayless out of Chicago, but I've never been able to find out. But it just spread and it took. And it related to back in the olden days in the Wild Wild West, if you had rodents infesting your house, you'd get a rat snake and you'd let it loose and it'd eat all the rodents, clean up the house for the neighbors to see and have a nice, clean environment. But then after the rat snake did their job, they didn't want everybody seeing a bunch of snakes slithering around the house. So they just pick them up, put them in a jar, put them in the cellar, and they just keep them there until the next infestation. And that's kind of the way the undercover operatives were.
And
they kept us out of sight, but when they needed us, pick up that phone in a heartbeat. When nobody else could solve a given problem or get next to a given set of violators, they reached out to us and said, make it happen.
And that's why you say it takes big balls to do that kind of a job, man. At the same time, you say you feel expendable, right? They take you out of the jar, they let you loose out there to go, deal with the vermin of the world. And then they put you back and they put you away, hoping you don't cause any more problems, so to speak.
Right. So we're not influencing the rest of the office, the rest of the squad.
The good kids, the so-called good kids.
But they also gave us a lot of latitude and a lot of freedom and a lot of authority to do what we did. Yeah, because they knew what we could do.
Look, you did some incredible work, man. I mean, you describe undercover work as really basically one of the things you describe about undercover work is the one absolute unique aspect of being a UC operator is that you were alone. There were always people close by to help, but no human is faster than a bullet. UCs don't get to go into our world with guns drawn. We don't get to wear heavy ballistic vests and personalized protective equipment. Doing undercover work is really just what I would tell people is the only tool you'll have is up here and the two down here and your gun, and you have to be quick on your feet. You got to be brave. It's okay to be afraid initially and deal with that and then box that up and then go do your job. And so a lot of people don't understand what it takes, the bravery it takes to work undercover, man. And you did that for 30 years, man, about 30 years.
I always relied on and asked my other UCs who I work with to rely on your instincts, your training, and what you know. If it looks bad, it probably is. Mm-hmm. Don't overthink it. On my first 2 or 3 or 4 operations, I was a little nervous, but after a while, I wasn't scared because we were really good at what we did. We would what if and round table a particular UC to death until we had our best plan. And sometimes the best plan ain't good enough. Right. But once I got enrolled, I never was afraid as much as I was tuned in.
Right.
Watching body language, listening to words, listening to what they're saying, seeing what's going on around me, reading the room, assessing, has something changed since the last time we met? And it was all business. So I never really had a chance to get scared per se. Yeah. Or nervous. I just wanted to work the problem, ready for whatever came.
Yeah. And in your book, you talk about if there was ever a time where you have that level of anxiety come up, you would take a moment to kind of gather yourself, take a few breaths, and just go to work. Because working undercover, it's like walking a tightrope, and you have to survive it every single time. You can't fall.
Yeah, you can't. That's fall. Exactly right. That's a great analogy. In fact, I thought at some point I was going to put in my book, I don't know if it made it in there because I can't remember now. It took so damn long to write. But I compared it to walking a tightrope blindfolded.
Blindfolded, yes.
You know?
Because
you have no clue what's going to happen.
Right.
But you need to react instantaneously to any changing environment, have a response for every question, every, you had
to have a plan B
it's
for
a
everything.
Thinking man's game. It's right. Definitely a thinking man's game.
It's you have to be able to see it. You have to be able to play the part. You have to be able to, and then here's the other thing. You have to be the bad guy, play the bad guy really well. At the same time, you have to work within the parameters of the law. Because
you don't want to be the worst sounding guy or the worst looking guy on a video or an audio tape in a jury trial. You want to be convincing to the bad guy, but you definitely don't want to be worse than the bad guy.
In your opinion, what makes a good undercover? What makes it, for anyone who's watching this who says, I want to be a rat snake, I want to be a UC, what makes a good undercover agent? What makes a good undercover cop?
Wow. I'd say the number one quality you got to have is flexibility.
Okay.
Be able to think on your feet, think in the moment, react, control your body language, control your thoughts, slow your thinking down. Basically the ability to chew gum and walk at the same time would be the biggest thing. The guts come into it, having the balls to do that first undercover or second undercover. Like I said, after a while, it becomes fairly commonplace in terms of the fear factor. I learned early on, just because somebody sticks a gun in your face don't mean you're going to die.
That's right. If you're still there to think about it and process it, you haven't died yet.
Right.
You're still there. You're still there. You say that an undercover operator has a gun, a badge, a fake ID, some sort of backstory of sort, a non-government looking car or a motorcycle in your case, with covert credentials, a covert identification, and with that comes a lot of freedom. A lot of freedom that oftentimes can lead people astray. And so you have to maintain that level of understanding that you have a role to play, but you also are a representative of an agency, but you're also
you're a cop first and foremost.
Yeah. You're representing.
You cannot ever lose sight of that, because things happen. And sometimes, guess what? You got to trash a case to stop somebody from getting killed. Yeah. Or you got to trash a case because of any number of reasons to stop a crime in progress or whatever. And you got to be willing to just, tank the case. I don't care how much you have invested into it. You got to be the cop, and you can never cut corners. The one question everybody asks every time I do a presentation or something is, so did you ever get high? Did you have to do drugs and stuff? And oftentimes I get the impression they don't believe me when I tell them absolutely not.
Right.
Never happened. Not once. Zero. Because at that point, you're no longer a cop. You're a criminal.
That's right. And we're representing the citizenry of America is relying on us, relying on guys like you to do the right thing. To do the right thing.
And sometimes, you know what? Undercover work has eaten up a lot of souls.
Yes.
Some people are not cut out, don't have the discipline or the wherewithal to to navigate all the temptations and the pitfalls of undercover work. And we've lost, numerous to bad conduct. And,
I mean, look, you're driving around in a cool car. You got money in your pocket. You're out committing crimes under the color of your authority. You're hanging out with people that you normally wouldn't be hanging out with, in places that you normally wouldn't be at wee hours of the night into the morning. And oftentimes you have to get out there. You'll have some drinks. You're doing your thing. You're doing your job. And you spend so much time in that gray area. You spend so much time in that gray area that, as you say, you have that personality fragmentation that leads to those undercover flaws. You're playing so many parts, you're playing so many parts, and then you're going home to be dad. You're going home to, and you're getting phone calls from bad guys.
That's a brutal transition, I gotta tell you.
Yeah.
You're asking a wife to tolerate these weird hours and, doing the things you do and going out and going titty bars or whatever for the job and blah, blah, blah. And then you're coming home and trying to convince everybody, I'm just the same guy I was when I left. I had to go do that thing. We don't need to talk about it. Well, let's just get on with go to church and do our thing or play football, whatever we're doing.
Yeah.
But it's a hard one to sell. I mean, it's hard on a family.
It is very hard. One of the hardest things, speaking of challenges as the undercover, the hardest part at times is to say no sometimes to a drug deal, and it takes a little bit of maturity to get to the point where you just say no, because we're alphas, we're type A type people. We want to get it done, but it takes a little bit of discipline to say no. And I think
that's one of the biggest earmarks when I know a young agent, maybe a trainee of mine or just a younger agent, or even just a friend of mine has arrived and walks from what would be a cool case, one in a notch on his belt and the boss would be, but for whatever reason, be it is a ripoff, be it was a poorly choreographed undercover and is bordering on entrapment or something wasn't right about it for whatever reason, and saying, what, we'll come back another day.
Yeah.
We'll get him another day. We're going to close this down because it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't look right. Mistakes were made or something. And we're not in the business of railroading people or tricking people into being criminals.
Right.
And when somebody walk away, and I've walked away from many, for a myriad of reasons.
And it takes discipline. It takes maturity, and it takes good leadership at the same time.
It does. I mean, it's hard to walk away. No UC wants to walk away from a deal ever.
And you worked with some really incredible people. You worked with Jay Dobbins. You worked with so many. You mentioned so many names in your book. And I'll tell you this: in reading your book, you talk more about the stories that your colleagues participated in, and that you more about them than you do about yourself. And by the way, to your credit, I had to get to almost page 300 to hear about your accolades, to hear about your awards, by the way. So I give you credit for that, man, because you didn't start there. You could have, because you've got a lot of awards, man. You've had quite a career, controversy along with it. But you waited to page 300 to talk about your awards, man. And you know what? Everything you got, well deserved, man. Well deserved.
To be clear, this book is not the Vince Cefalu story. If you want to know everything about Vince Cefalu, you're not going to get it out of that book. You'll get some good tidbits. You'll get a couple good stories. But I wanted the crew. I wanted the RatSnakes. I wanted the foundation of what will still be going on 30 years from now because of these guys, the tricks of the trade, the street theater, the advances we made, the improvements, the safety mechanisms, the fail safes. I want them to get credit for all that because I played a part in it, I guess, some little part like everybody else.
Yeah.
But all of us together built a UC program that's unparalleled.
Speaking of a UC, I think you'd agree that being a good UC has less to do with appearance and how you dress, but it has a lot to do with your game, your swagger, how you comport yourself, how you basically carry yourself. Would that be about right?
Oh, it's 100% right. I've seen guys do UCs that look like
accountants.
Yeah, like Brad Pitt or whatever.
Yeah.
Pretty boys, clean cut, short hair.
Yeah.
but they had the game, they had the right attitude, they had the right story. They were able to pull it off and do it. And on the flip side, I've seen guys who look like me, guys who look worse than me, tatted up, piercings in their eyeballs and every other kind of accoutrement you can have. And they walk into a place and guys are going, "You're a cop, dude." You know, I mean, so it's all about what you can sell. If it only works if the guys on the other side are believing it. Doesn't matter what you think, how cool you are.
Right.
They got to think you're cool.
It's a role you're playing with a lot of you in it at times. And if you don't have it, then you have to make up that you, and you have to work hard at developing it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And you got to get comfortable with that other persona. You know, you got to be able to adopt it and say, you know, that could be me on a different day. If I wasn't an ATF agent, I could, you know, talk shit, throw down, drink beer, freaking, you know, whatever. You can't come in and pretend, because it's got to be believable.
The one of your most memorable undercover ops you write about is the guy that ended up with a bunch of grenades. Tell us a little bit about that. The
guy with all the explosives, grenade dude.
Yeah,
the plumber.
He was throwing him into he was tossing him into the police parking
lot. He was a bank robber, two brothers.
Yeah.
They did federal time. They had just paroled out from the Atlanta Federal Penitentiary. We had a snitch. One of our agents had a snitch into these bank robbers because they were looking to make money and do whatever. Well, as it turns out, the bank robber's mother married an Atlanta cop. The Atlanta cop was a bomb tech who had been pilfering a whole bunch of explosives over the years. Instead of destroying them, he'd take them for personal use or trophies or whatever. So he had all these high explosives in his basement. Bank robber gets out, goes visits his mom, sees all that shit, and the ball starts. He wants to sell it. So I meet him the first time, and he's tweaking. I mean, he is high on speed like you've never seen, sweating, shaking. He pats me down. I pat him down. It was really nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
But he brought me a piece of military ordnance. I forget whether it was a piece of C4 or something. TNT, I don't remember. So that got our attention that he wasn't talking shit. He said, "I got a whole trunk load of that shit."
Wow.
He started naming off stuff, claymores and C4 blocks and detonators and this and that. So obviously that went to number one priority in our field division. We put all the resources on it we could. We're able to surveil him, find out where he was coming from. And sure enough, right on time, he met me, rolled up. It was not as nervous this time because we had done the deal, and he was a little more chilled. And so he backed up to my car, and I opened my trunk. He opened his, and he just started slinging these explosives in there.
He started smoking.
And I was like trying to catch him in the air, and I'm like, dude, you're going to fucking blow us up here.
Yeah.
And I tried to get him chilled down. So the SWAT team was ready to pounce and waiting on my signal. I was able to lure him away from that shit. Say, "Dude, you're freaking me out, man. Come on, let's smoke cigarette, man. You're making me nervous." And I was able to lure him away from that. And then SWAT swooped on him and everything. But he had enough to literally blow up a city block.
You know, it's incredible. Everything you just described right now probably happened in a matter of, I'm going to say probably a few minutes in reality.
Minutes, yeah.
But when you're in it, when you're in that moment, it feels like an eternity. It feels like an eternity before SWAT shows up to effect an arrest. It feels like time just slows down because you have such a heightened sense of awareness, right?
Oh, yeah. You got to
describe that.
You know, for your listeners, my cover team, the agents that are listening to me on a wire, are maybe, if I'm lucky, within a block, maybe, depending on the neighborhood or the area, maybe even farther away than that. So they're not being seen and whatever.
Yeah.
So whatever time it takes to drive that distance and come in guns a blaring, you know, and get control of the situation, there's a limbo, you know.
Yeah.
Is he going to hear him coming? Is he going to, you know, decide to go out in a bang, you know, and shoot it out? Is, you know, there's a million thoughts going through your head. And then when you hear that door crash in, you're just like,
you know, it feels like an eternity, but but you're so, I mean, it's probably one of the happiest moments for you is when they show up and bring calmness to the situation, and you can say, okay, I survived this one, you know.
Yeah.
We're talking a little bit about heightened awareness, and when you live in that level of awareness for extended periods of times, there's you refer to it as long-term exposure to UC work. There's a price to pay to that, both long-term and short-term.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What are some of those effects?
You know, when I talk about a short-term, I'm like, you know, the typical drug deal. You're going to meet the guy, do the dope deal, take him down, or whatever the case be. Long-term being protracted, multiple meets with multiple violators trying to move up the food chain, get into their power structure. But both of them, you know, if you do 100 one-day short-term UCs in 6 months, or you do 1 6-month long-term, they're equally as troubling in terms of your psyche, because you're constantly in and out. Sometimes you got to stay enrolled. You know, I get nervous if I was operating close to my residence, you know, my county. You know, am I going to be out with my kids and my wife? So I'm constantly got that one thing going in the back of my head, how I'm going to react if I run into a violator or whatever. Not to the point of paranoia, but you can't ever let your guard down.
And you're living with this in this hyper vigilant state. However, because you're a UC, you can't let that show. When you're let's say like a tactical kind of an operator type, like a SWAT guy or a uniformed officer, it's okay you can get away with that heightened sense of awareness, that hyper vigilant look, right? But as a UC operator, you can't show that. You can't be like that Secret Service agent who's looking around and you know exactly what he's looking for. As a UC, you're doing the same thing, but you have to maintain a low-key type of approach.
Right.
That takes discipline.
Right, absolutely. You got to make it look natural. But, you know, toward the end, when you got a few years in there, it is natural. It really didn't require much thought. You know, you had to pay attention to what was going on around you, but you were already doing that anyway.
Right.
It's like that adrenaline level that would have been pegged in the first 5 years on the job, for 10 or 15 years on the job. It isn't even raising my blood pressure to be in that environment now. It's not that I've gotten complacent, it's that I've gotten used to it and developed better coping skills and better ability to manage that adrenaline, what have you.
It's just part of you now. It becomes part of you in a covert kind of a way, And you can't teach situational awareness to people. You can talk about it, you can tell them what it is, but you've got to live it. You have to experience it to become very good at that. And when you're referring to a situational awareness, whether you're in the middle of a deal or you're in transit to and from work or the office, you have to maintain that situational awareness. Even when you're in the middle of talking shit with a bad guy at a bar, at a restaurant, in a parking lot, you've got to maintain that situational awareness.
Absolutely. I had my high school principal from a Catholic high school, a priest, walk into a bar when I was in the middle of a deal.
Yeah.
And he immediately recognized me, and I knew this couldn't be good.
It wasn't confession hour either.
Right. And I raced over to him, gave him a big hug. He felt my gun when I was giving him the hug. And I said, I'm on the job, Father. Just go back to what you're doing. I'll talk to you later. And he just, you know, kind of nodded, patted me on the shoulder, went back to his table. Bad guy was no the wiser and never came up. And then when the deal was over, I went over and, you know, explained to him. He was like all proud, you know, oh my God, this knucklehead in my high school turned out to be something.
He turned out okay. You know? Hey, look, what was it like to what was it like to work with you? What would your colleagues say about you? What was it like to work with Vincent Cefalu on Undercover Op?
You'd have to ask them. I'd have to say overall that they would say they felt safe, they felt well prepared, and felt like we were going to be successful.
Good.
Just because I brought so much experience to the table. Now they might say, you know, he was a hardhead, he was an asshole,
that comes
whatever. I pushed too hard, or I mean, they might say a lot of shit, but I think at the end of the day, they'd say, you know, I'd work with that guy any day.
What would your supervisor say? Because I know you work with a few, good, bad, and indifferent. What would your supervisor say about you?
Whenever I transferred from one squad to another, my previous supervisor would apologize to my new supervisor.
For what?
I got along with everybody. They were all my friends, all my brothers. We'd throw down, you know, after work and whatever.
Yeah.
But my bosses, nobody wanted to be the one to have to supervise me.
Why? Tell me why.
Dude. Mostly because I knew as much or more than they did about policy, procedure, practices of the Bureau. And a lot of new supervisors, or even older supervisors who were from the, you know, no cases, no problems, big cases, big problems.
Right. You brought problems. You brought problems.
Because they would. A lot of those supervisors' first answer would be no. When we approached them with about a UC and a plan, and they'd be no, because they didn't want it. They weren't ready for it. They couldn't. It was outside their skill set.
Yeah.
And I'd say, well, you really can't say no for A, B, C, and D. And they're like, well, I'm a supervisor. I said, well, we can go talk to Special A in charge, because policy says I'm within policy, and just that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And
that's why you're a rat snake, man.
I usually got my way.
Now, you worked with a guy named Luis Quinones, right?
I did.
Yeah, I know Louis as well. He was your supervisor for a minute.
Yeah. It was a big joke that when he got his first supervisor job, that he was not only coming to Atlanta, but he was getting me to supervise. It caused him a little consternation. It was, Louis a quirky dude.
You're not the first narc who's ever bought dope. ¿Me entiendes, Mendes?
And it was his first supervisor job, and didn't want to screw up, and saw me as a potential liability for quiet, calm in the group and whatever. But we worked it out, you know. Be honest with you, I'm probably the one that got him promoted. I put his group on the map.
Right on, man.
You know, and he let me do it. He let me do it reluctantly, but he let me do it. And we outperformed everybody in the Atlanta Field Division. And, you know, next thing he got was promoted to whatever he wanted. So
now this wasn't the time, or maybe I'm wrong. Was that you that rode naked on a Harley?
No. There were two agents, Gundo and then Jim Langley both did it. Good and time. That's just shit that, you know, doesn't go into a report. It's of no evidentiary value. It does nothing but to build your credibility with the violator. But, you know, probably a little bit outside policy, and somewhat embarrassing, but, you know, sometimes you push the envelope and you get lucky.
Yeah.
You know.
You worked with Jay Dobbins as well?
I worked with Jay Dobbins for 25 years.
Yeah, author of the book No Angel and Catching Hell. Another excellent UC. You know, I know you guys worked together a long time. And so what was it like working with Jay?
Oh, dude.
That I mean, you can tell me right here. It's a podcast. You can say whatever.
Literally, we were like, Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid.
Yeah.
I mean, he was the yin to my yang. When somebody needed to bring calm and charm to the conversation or the activity, it would be Jay. And when somebody needed to amp it up and knock some heads, you know, it was me. And we just fed off each other and doing it so long together, we could do it without even thinking. I knew what he was thinking. I knew what he was doing. I was never worried about not knowing where this was going, because even if he didn't say anything, I could see where he was going with something or what the play was going to be.
Yeah, heck of an undercover, man. I mean, one of his favorite phrases was "Jesus hates a pussy," you know, and I mean, that,
I believe that.
What a gut
I believe
check.
that. And you know what? None of those guys in my book are pussies.
That's
they
right.
might be a lot of things, but not one of them are pussies, because you know what? They walked into environments that most of my neighbors right here in Tennessee right now would shut down. They'd freeze up. They'd be in fear for their life. And these people walked into them on an everyday basis, not thinking anything more about it than they're doing their job, you know, trying to catch a violent offender.
Can you describe that for someone who's never been on an undercover deal, who's never showed up to a worst case scenario in a house? The sights, the smells, the environment, just the feeling of dread sometimes. You know, I remember seeing children in the house and I was like, why the hell are there children here right now? Why is there a pile of cocaine next to the Similac? Why is there
why are there shitty diapers in the crib with that baby while mama's sticking a needle in her arm and daddy's trying to sell me a gun?
Yeah. Describe that for those who've never been in one of those, in that environment. Break that down a little bit.
Dude, it's, you know, Jay once said, it's a vomit, blood covered nightmare on an everyday basis. You go into the filthiest, nastiest crack houses, most rundown trailer parks, people with God knows what kind of disease, people with God knows what kind of criminal history and propensity for violence, in an environment that you don't know and they do.
Right.
They control all the marbles. And, you know, quite frankly, the FBI would never step into those environments. I've worked joint task forces where I did the UCs for the FBI, and there were UCs that literally, we're going to do a gun buy or it was going to be a dope deal, but we had already documented on the first undercover meet or whatever that they were armed. And they would not sign off. They're not sanctioned UC if the bad guys were going to be armed. Well, as a ATF agent, is like, if they're not armed, I'm not going.
Exactly.
You know, if they're not bringing guns, what is the point?
That's the deal, man.
So, you know, that's why we being ATF, were the premier undercover operators.
Yeah. And
still remain that. We teach those who don't know.
Got it, man. You know, rumor has it that not everything that happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Kind of like your gun and a badge. You left your gun and a badge at the casino table. Is that true, or am I making that up?
Yes, it's true. I was playing poker.
Yeah.
Late at night. Got up, got in the cab, got halfway back to the UC house and realized I'd left those lame ass freaking butt packs, holsters we all used to carry.
Yeah.
I left it strapped to my seat. Well, I raced back to the casino. It was gone. And I was dying. I literally by policy had 2 hours to notify internal affairs.
Right.
I called the supervisor. He said, let's give it a little bit more time. Let me sleep on it tonight. Call me first thing, 7 a.m. And then if we haven't found anything out, I was so prudent. About 7 o'clock in the morning, I got a call. How they got the undercover apartment's phone number, I will never know. Unless maybe there was something in my little bag.
Yeah.
At any rate, it was the sheriff's department from Las Vegas said, we've recovered a pistol and a badge belonging, because I didn't answer the phone, ATF. I just said,
hello.
Hello. And, I had to do something. So anyway, when they convinced me, I said, give me a callback number. And I called back. It was the sheriff's office. He said, we found your gun and badge. I said, I will be there in 2 seconds. And I called Ed Birkin, the supervisor in Vegas. And it was like 7 on the money. He goes, dude, I was just getting ready to call IA. And then, so he said, call me as soon as you have them in your hands. And I got down to the sheriff's office, and they had my gun and badge. I guess they got out, whoever got outside and went, oh shit. And threw it, and somebody turned it in the sheriff's department or something.
My God. So Vincent, you brought your dad on a drug deal?
No, I brought my dad to a bar.
No, hey, you brought him to a drug deal.
No, I brought him to a bar.
And he loved every second of it.
And then it became a drug deal. No, we took him to the Silver Dollar in Vegas to drink. We met Darren Gill, one of my other partners, and his wife. And we were there drinking. And Bird went up, and I saw him talking to this dude at the bar. He motioned me over. This guy's trying to sell us, I can get you wherever you want, this, that, and the other. And, and I can get pistols. And he promised us the world and everything. So Jay, just out of the blue, for no reason, totally unnecessary.
Said, well,
he looks over at my dad. My dad's got, he looks like one of those guys, He's like,
Italian.
We got to check with the boss, and we don't say nothing about the guns.
Right. Or the
and
drugs.
We walked over, and Jay whispered some shit to my dad. His eyes lit up and brought this dude over to the table. And my dad just went in the row, and he was like, I fuck around with no guns. I don't want to see no guns around this. But okay, you go ahead and do your business.
Yeah.
The guy walked away and thought he had talked to fucking Don Corleone or something. I don't know.
Is that what you call?
Yeah, so that was my dad's big claim to fame for undercover work.
Is that what we call street theater?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We like to usually be a little more scripted than that.
Yeah.
We want everybody who's in the street theater to know that they're in the street theater.
Right. And I think he's got it. I think he earned himself an Oscar for that one. Heck of a job with that one.
Dude, I would literally say, if you took raw, uncut UC videos and compared them to acting, on a more formal level, like in a movie, take similar scenarios from a movie and that, you'd be like, oh, I'd rather hire her than De Niro or him than Pacino. That dude sold me 100% on his shit.
Yeah. Because the commitment level is a little bit different for an undercover agent. Like his ass is riding on the line. His tail's on the line. Right? So
and every time, on occasion, we get occasion to meet celebrities for one reason or another because of our job and what have you. And sometimes we get to consult on some stuff.
Yeah.
And that's the first thing we tell them. Hey, you know what? That's all well and good, but you're not playing that right, dude. You're playing that like you got 3 more takes and do-overs. You get one chance in uncover work. You fuck it up, you get shot in the face.
Damn right. You get one take. There's an element of betrayal when it comes to undercover work, right? And some agents deal with it differently than others. When it comes to that part in the undercover world, you have to befriend, and then you have to betray. And some of these people that you betray, they probably could have been your friend had the circumstances been different. They probably
absolutely
not more different than you are.
That's where it comes back, though. There's a line.
Yeah.
There's the good guys and there's the bad guys.
Yeah.
He or she is a bad guy. It doesn't matter how nice their children are or, how much affection he or she shows. There's been a couple of undercovers that I spent a long time, a lot of exposure with the violators and got to know their families or what have you slowly on some level, And there's some that I was regretful that they made the choices they made, but they made the choices. Now, if it's a choice between a presumably otherwise good guy who's trying to sell pipe bombs to bikers or some innocent civilian who's going to get killed by that pipe bomb, I'm going to side with the innocent civilian every time. Sorry, dude. You seem like a nice guy, but for the bike bombs, or the cocaine or the heroin, I never, a couple times I had a little twinge of like, wow, that was kind of fucked up. I let him believe we were tight. There's actually several undercovers where when the takedown went down, the bad guy looked at their best friend who introduced me as being the snitch or the undercover or the bad guy. So much so that they thought so highly of me that it couldn't be me. It had to be their friend of 12 years, not their friend of 2 weeks.
Right, right. There's it's an interesting dynamic when that happens, because you have to be okay with it, right? At the same time, it's part of your job, and they made the choice on what it is they want to do. Like you made your choice with what it is you want to do. That was
right, and it's still confusing. You want to come away feeling like you have some compassion, that you haven't become a total machine against crime and forgot that humanity is involved. So it bothers you if you're a human being.
Yeah.
Like, damn, I wish that dude would have walked away, or I wish that dude, he had a seemingly nice family. What a knucklehead, man.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, he did what he does, and I do what I do.
Because UCs, undercovers, live and work in the gray area, and you describe it laced with danger. Oftentimes, as a rat snake, you're seen upon as being dirty, and it's so easy to throw that word around. And I've heard it myself when they say, "Oh, he's probably dirty." No, man, you're just really good at your damn job. You're just really damn good at your job. And so that's something that, to this day bothers me when I hear that type of stuff about UCs. And yes, have there some been that are, yes, there are a few.
But you know what?
You're solid, man.
If you're a good UC, nobody's ever thrown that jacket on me. Not in 30 years. No one's hinted, not even behind my back that I'm aware of, that, wow, this guy might be like playing both sides or straddling the line, because my level of professionalism and integrity spoke for itself.
That's right.
My evidence was always in on time. I wore a wire to everything I could possibly wear it to. There's no secrets. There was nothing going on in there that everybody doesn't know about. If I did something off color, I documented it. I said, this is why I did it. This is why I do, boss. Sorry. The Randy Beach story is the greatest story, undercover story of all time in my book. He dealt with this dude so many times, and the day he comes to do the big takedown by, the guy won't let him in the door. He's got the chain pulled. He goes, I heard you're a cop, man. Somebody said you were a cop, blah, blah, blah. You're wearing a wire, man. I know you are. And he opened his shirt. He said, I'm not wearing a wire. He goes, you got a wire on you. And at that point, Randy dropped trowel. And I'm not talking about just down to the underwear. I'm talking down to butt-ass naked on a neighborhood street on a front porch. And the dude was like, whoa, dude, whoa. Okay, cool. Came in, let him in, got him off the street, made the deal. Unfortunately, somebody on the cover team was a little bitch and felt like they needed to make a big deal out of it and report to the bosses. And the case was made. Yes, Randy was going to have to explain that away in court. But if he did, the jury would have laughed and they would have convicted the dude. He pled out. He was caught dirty on a wire.
Yeah.
But what Randy did was outside policy. He took it like a man. He got a day or two suspension.
That's right.
He was willing to risk that to make the deal, get that thing done. He didn't think it would come back to bite him, but somebody betrayed him and snitched him out to the bosses. And that's okay. He was okay with that, whatever.
Apparently it wasn't in the UC manual. It wasn't in the UC blueprint.
Neither was half the shit Jay and I did. Dude, Jay went into frickin' Mexico. Can I tell you how many reams of policies that violated? But you know, he did what had to be done. He didn't lie about it. He reported it. And they were like, shit, they didn't know what to do with it because it worked. You know, he stepped across the border for a minute to do some street theater and came back. Okay.
It's that gray area laced with danger. You know, there's a chapter in your book, you talk about the dysfunctional life of a UC, you know, while he's a UC and then post UC life. You know, you leave UC work, right? Guys leave UC work and they're no longer that, they don't no longer hold that identity. So what's it like when you leave UC work and you don't have that identity anymore? You're not on the job anymore. What's that like?
It was different for everybody.
Yeah.
There's people, and I won't mention any names, but there are people that are still clinging to it to this very minute.
Yeah.
You know, getting ready to go out the door and just, to me, it was a job. To me, it was a fun part of the job. To me, it was what I contributed. To me, it was what I got the awards for, and because I was good at it and what have you. But at the end of the day, I'd much rather be hunting, being with my kids, drinking, fishing, traveling, you know, finding something else to get into, teaching at colleges, talking to guys like you know. I did it. It was a thing. I ran its course, and I mean, I can still do it today, but I'm done. You know, somebody else's job now.
Have you ever participated or helped out with like peer support type groups, so to deal with UCs who it's hard for them to kind of come out of that and that gray area?
That was one of the things I was really proud of. They didn't manage it well and still haven't, but it's better than nothing. Is our enhanced undercover program, our big super program, when we teach the state and locals and other feds and all that, has a component now of peer support. And there are certain triggers that would require like a control agent. Like in Jay's case, that would be me, for example. And I got to come in and put an objective set of eyes on it, seeing if, you know, and whatever it was that triggered that, maybe problems at home, maybe a bonehead call on an undercover meet, or a bad attitude at the office, or something triggers that. So instead of going punitive and getting the bosses on the ball, I bring in a peer support guy, one of us who are trained in it and have the UC background.
Yeah.
And you'd come down and try to help them figure out, you know, what's going on. Are these outside issues? Are these agency issues? Are these personal issues? Are these mental issues? Are these financial issues? You know, what's got you kicking off these buzzers that you normally don't kick off when you do UC? And hopefully can figure it out, rein it in, tone it down, make some adjustments and keep moving forward. Or the unsavory task of saying, dude, I'm going to tell them to call it.
Yeah.
You know, you've gone off the res, in my opinion. And if you go any further, it's going to hurt you, and I can't have that. So, you know, you're going to have to hate me for shutting down your op, but you're not willing to make any changes or acknowledge that you're kind of fucking this up. And we can't have you get killed or hurt or divorced or suicided or anything else because of this job. So ATF instituted some of that, and I was really proud of them for paying attention to that aspect of it. It doesn't happen often, because for an operator to be involved in a long-term undercover operation, they've got to have 10 years on the job. They have to have passed certain milestones.
Yeah.
Advanced undercover school and some other things, you know. So you're not really going to have that much issue. It happens occasionally. It does.
No. You were involved while you were in ATF. You were in when a lot of things were happening. One is the Brian Terry incident. You know, may he rest in peace. I've got to meet some of his family. They love him so much, you know, and may he forever rest in peace. He's a Border Patrol agent who was killed on duty, shot with weapons that were part of the Fast and Furious incident, and
Right.
you were involved in some of that there. You were also with ATF when the whole Waco incident happened as well, and that's what a mark. What an unfortunate event that was.
Yeah, that was a devastating scenario all the way around. That was, clearly the pinnacle of my career, the biggest thing I've ever been involved in.
Mm-hmm.
It was scary times for the Bureau.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. The Brian Terry family, have you spoken to them at all?
I talked to them. I talked to him every other week.
Yeah. His brother, I believe, was with ATF, retired recently, right?
His brother? No, his cousin.
His cousin.
Or his uncle was a Secret Service agent.
Okay. Got it.
His brother, Kent, he's a construction guy, heavy equipment operator.
Got it. And so now, I think there's a special place in heaven, right? For the UC, because UCs, we don't seek fame, we don't seek fortune, we just want to go get the bad guy, and UCs go about it in a very unconventional type of way, and so in your book, the whole purpose of the book was to you say you to bring justice to them and to do them right. I personally believe that you have done the RatSnakes justice. That.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, and look, you wore the badge proudly. You showed bravery in everything that you did, along with all the other guys you worked with. And courage when at times when most people they wouldn't even show up to that place. Sometimes, like, that's too damn scary. That's not what I signed up for, And I think that through this book and your work and everything that you've been doing, you brought a lot of honor to the RatSnakes, man. I really think you have, and I think you should continue, sharing your story. And where can someone find the book RatSnakes? Where can they get it at?
You can get Barnes and Noble, Books a Million, Amazon, www.ratsnakesbook.com.
Okay.
If you go to ratsnakesbook.com, then you can put in the comment section your name or how you'd like it personalized, and I'll personalize it and send it straight to you. I mean, some people like that,
Yeah.
If they have a father or somebody who's an ex-cop and they want me to write something in there. So if you buy it from the RatSnakes book, you'll get it autographed if you want that. Otherwise, you can buy it anywhere.
I just went to good old Amazon. I'm gonna mail you this book because I want you to sign my book, man.
Oh, you got it, brother. You know that.
I'm gonna put that bad boy in the mail, and I think it's only proper that I do mention some of the awards and recognition you got, man. Because again, you waited till almost page 300 to talk about that sort of thing. Look, in your 27 years of service to ATF, you compiled 11 special acts or service awards, 11, and dozens of letters of commendations. You were awarded Special Agent of the Quarter for 2 consecutive quarters, and received the second highest evaluation possible for 20 consecutive years. Look, you did good, man. You did good. And I think guys like you need to be close to guys who want to do the type of job that you did, the kind of type of job that guys like us did. And because they need to hear about that. They need to hear that if you did it, they can do it. And you lay the groundwork for them amongst with all your other peers who laid the groundwork for them. Because as good as you were on the job, as good as Jay was, Louis Quinones, all these other guys on the job, there's someone out there who hopefully can do it better. And if they don't hear your stories, they won't be able to do it better.
Well, we talked a little bit earlier about being on your own, one-on-one, mano-a-mano.
Yeah.
Sometimes outnumbered greatly by the bad guys.
Yeah.
And not having the body armor and not doing all that. But it was still a team effort.
For sure.
I can't think of one undercover that I ever did, no matter how simple, how direct the buy was or whatever, that there wasn't 5, 6, 7 phone calls bouncing off of Jay, bouncing off of Boxali, bouncing off of Langley, bouncing off of Bambi. Like, hey, this is my play here. This is where it's going to be, how much it is. And invariably, somebody would go, whoa, dude, what about this? And I'd go, oh, shit, you're right. That's why I called, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it was never just me going in there. It was dozens. And, you know, the guys I highlighted in my book, that was my crew of 30 years.
Yeah.
But there were crews out there in ATF, young up and comers, older guys, you know, before my generation.
Yeah.
That did as much and do just as much. It's just no way you can put them all in a book.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I focused on what I knew.
Yeah.
You know, and
sure. Look, the UC operation doesn't go down by itself. There's a team of people out there. But in the end, you and I both know it's just you, what's up here, your pair, and your gun that go in there and have that knee-to-knee contact with that bad guy at the kitchen table and get it done.
And the prayer.
Amen.
Always the prayer.
That's
I got to tell you a quick Louis Quinoa story, man. I can't let it go without busting out Louis. Like I said, Louis was pretty quirky, but me and Louis went back a long way. So I knew his quirkiness. So that begrudgingly, the FBI asked me to meet with these two Colombians for some machine guns and a kilo of coke because they didn't have an undercover that could do it or would do it.
Yeah.
So, and they really hated me. The local Atlanta FBI hated me. They hated ATF getting any credit for anything and having to rely on our resources. And that was usually me in terms of undercover. So they hated me. So anyway, we're all out there. They got the SWAT team. We're at the final staging area before I go in and meet these guys. We'd had our briefing. We're doing the final check. Everybody's checking weapons, doing everything. And we're just sitting there smoking cigarettes and talking shit before I get ready to make the call and go in or whatever. And I said, Louis, and I said this in front of everybody because I knew Louis would have something to say.
Yeah.
So all these FBI guys are kind of hanging on every word, and we're sitting around bullshit and telling war stories. And I said, Louis, seriously, there, and this one's a little nerve-wracking here. These Colombians with machine gun. I said, what do you think my chances are? I said, what do you think's gonna happen when I go in there? I was baiting him, and he said, just do me a favor, man. Say hello to Jesus and my grandma for me. These FBI agents almost pissed themselves that he would say that to me right before I'm going into an undercover. All I could do to contain my laughter because I love the effect it had on these FBI guys. And they're all like, oh my God, does he think he's going to die and everything? And it was like, no, dude, he was just saying that shit to fuck with you guys.
Yeah, right on, man. Well, look, Vincent, I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for serving our country as a United States Marine. I want to thank you for service to our country through ATF, and thank you for risking it. And you're making me want to get out and get my whiskey. I even dressed up for the occasion to meet with you today. And so
me too.
I see that. I want to thank you, man, for being who you are. Don't go changing, brother. Just keep getting better and keep being the role model that you are to the up and coming agents out there. And I want to thank you so much for your time. Thank you very much, Vince.
I appreciate it, Lou. It's been a blast.
Right on.